All right, everybody get a chance to look through the material? Just a quick heads up, we are recording, folks, now. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great, awesome. Just making sure that I wasn't talking to myself. Did that the other day for about 5 minutes before somebody said, oh, gee, are we actually supposed to be doing something? So anyway, welcome to Assessment and Creative Conversations. For those of you that maybe haven't joined in before, this is your chance to talk to each other about the topic. So think of book club meets your pedagogy and teaching skills. So instead of me presenting and talking the whole time, I'm going to get out of the way and let people talk, but I'll kind of facilitate and host things along the way. Did want to check and see with everyone, kind of after having taken a look at those, what's your idea of what an assessment is? Because everybody has a little different idea. We're going to start with a quiet group, right? Somebody jump in.
Well, I guess I would say an assessment is any kind of way to determine if the student learned what you intended for them to learn.
Great. That's one. A lot of people tend to think just of tests and quizzes, and they forget assignments on some of those. I think that I like that. Any other thoughts?
I like to think assessment can be very informal too. Because I always tell my students, if you can read the room, you can tell if they are understanding what they're telling you or what you're telling them. So if they're all looking at you with wide eyes, it's like, okay, they didn't get what I just said. So how do I re-explain that?
Absolutely. So a very quick and easy informal assessment is some of the most powerful sometimes. So of the resources that were out there, what did people find?
I watched the backward design video, and I think we've kind of been doing that in our we've been designing our courses with the new essentials, and based on that we're creating our objectives, and then we're going back and looking at our assignments to see if they match the objectives. So that's kind of neat. I mean, while I was watching it, I was like, oh, we're doing this. This is great.
We've been talking backward design for a long time here, and so it's fun to hear it actually being used. And that's about the third or fourth time in the last week that I've heard people say, oh, gee, that backward design stuff's perfect. It's like, yep, that's why we've been talking. So it's awesome to hear it's actually hitting home and people are seeing the benefits of it. That's great. What was the number of that resource? I'm trying to remember. Do you remember which one that was? I can go back and look too.
Number 6, I think.
Yeah, there we go. Anybody else take a look at that one? That's really the key piece to any assessment that you're looking at is what are you hoping they'll learn and how are you going to assess to make sure that that fits in place? So backward design is a key piece of that. Any other thoughts or things that people ran into? Boy, quiet group today. You can tell it's Friday, can't you? 2, 3, and 4 have some really nice lists that people were liking. If you just take a peek at them, called all kinds of different names. You're going to hear cat. You're going to hear colt. Lots of different pieces. But what I really liked about some of those were just the multitude of resources that were out there for people to be able to look at and use. And if you're looking for an author, I'm trying to remember if we hit any of them that had the actual author that I use quite a bit. If you're looking for authors, there's a group of people that I really follow a lot. It's Elizabeth Barkley, Claire Howell Major, and Kay Patricia Cross. And Cross Academy has a lot of active learning kinds of resources out there. Any of you run across any of those folks? This is a book that I've got in my office on COLT, collaborative learning techniques. And I don't know if that's backwards on what you're seeing, but so read backwards and you'll be ready to go. But if you want, this is available, but an awful lot of those lists come directly from or will credit that book or that group of folks. So some great resources out there. What other assessment texts are people using in their classes?
With online learning, we generally just have papers, discussion forums, reflections, which is just another paper that's written in a different format, and like quiz type things that are case studies that are entered in as like a quiz. And it just seems like it's those same things over and over that we're doing.
Okay. One thing that's really handy on this book, it has about 35 different activities out there. And what I loved about it was that for every one of those 35, it shows you how to modify that activity to do it online. So there's 35 more different ways that you can do assessment online for folks. So if you want to borrow that book, Jill, don't hesitate to just let me know and you're welcome to it.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, there's some great resources out there. Any other folks?
I have a textbook by McDonald that is more test question focused. And then I have one by Diamond.
Okay. Anything really stand out from either of those that are helpful?
McDonald is a lot of it's really test heavy focus, so I don't tend to use that a lot in practice. I use the information from my students. The Diamond text talks about assessing courses and curricula, so that's a little bit more helpful, but I think it's also a little old.
Okay.
Memory serves. Yeah, it's a whole lot of old. I need an updated edition.
Any other tools people are using? Awful quiet group today. The group
my students want Mark, my students made the comment that they would rather be having questions giving to them in game type format. So it's something I'll probably have to get with Spencer. It's like, okay, how? I mean, I know there's templates out there, but what's the easiest way to, or show me how to get like Jeopardy or they even thought of Family Feud, and I go, oh, that would be a great one for knowing medications and even assessment parts of disease processes to help them. But yeah, they're going, lectures are boring, and I go, yeah, that's totally true. And unfortunately, the first 2 weeks it needed to be a lecture format because it was just a lot of information for them. But then we did a total flip classroom.
How's that going?
Well, they go, we're teaching the class, and it's like, not really. We're breaking it down. You're presenting material, and anything that needs added has been added.
So let me ask you a question about that, because that's always interesting. Do you learn more when you sit in class and listen to a lecture, or do you learn more when you teach it?
When you teach it, and it was flipped back to that, and it's like, yeah, but that content that you presented, you knew it.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, you're right. And that's where it dropped at.
Yeah. And what I tell people, and it sounds corny, but one of the things I tell people is think about the old Karate Kid movie. And I don't know if all of you are old enough to remember that one, but Mr. Miyagi built the environment to learn. Being a teacher doesn't mean you're going to spoon feed students. It means you're going to build an environment for them to learn.
Right. And they want the information to pass the test. And it's like, you've been given the information. It's,
Yeah.
it's, are you applying it effectively? But there's still that misconnect of what's been given and their relationship on how to answer the questions. And,
Yeah.
you know, of course, we had our first exam. The results were not good. And, you know, they're going, well, I studied this, but I know I missed the questions on it. And it's like, but how did you study? And it's like, well, reviewing the notes. And it's like, okay. And it's like, maybe you need to like write the notes on a whiteboard or use one of the glass study rooms and do it that way. And of course, you know, they always, it's not my fault generation.
Yeah, you got it. Well, and what they
Yeah.
come in, and I use this a lot, is they play the game of education, and they play it very
Yeah.
well, and they've been taught that game for 12 years. And some of them, that was early on, and they've now been out for 10 years, and now they're back. But the game of education that I talk about is a student walks in the door, they pop open the lid, they sit back, they throw their book bag next to them, they sit back and wait for you to dump the information in. And then they close the lid when class is over, walk out, and expect to just regurgitate that information back on the test when it's time. And that's the game of education that many of them have gotten used to. And we have to teach in a whole different way, because you need to learn to think and apply what you learned, not just regurgitate what information's out there. And so it's a different approach for them. And it's going to take them a little bit of time to get used to that. And as more and more of our faculty start to work in that environment, our students are going to see that it is different, and it will change. But it is hard to get them out of that mold of, well, I'm just going to play the game of education. I know how to play this, and off we go. And what's interesting is your students that are challenged typically in education love this new environment. And the ones that are used to the rules, oh, I know the rules of this game, and they play it quite well, get a little bit irritated by it. And I'm teaching myself, and it's like, well, no, it's been the way it's always supposed to have been, not just instructors dump it in. But you were talking about games, so things like Kahoot, Quizlet, Nearpod, lots of those things really build an interactive environment where you can start building games and environments pretty easily. I know Spencer and Sonia both have some pretty significant templates for Jeopardy and Family Feud and all of that. So if you want to talk to them about those games, those are certainly out there. Lots of different pieces. Looked like there was an aha moment there, Seth.
I was just thinking, like, we've talked about those. What about bingo?
Yeah. You can.
I like
you
the bingo.
Make,
I can figure that one out.
yeah. You can make just about anything you want a game for learning. So think about the forum that we did, not this last one, but the one before, where we had all the different golf games and pieces like that. I've got a cornhole game up here. There's all kinds of things that you can use to incorporate learning into activity kinds of things. We went so far as to design a crime scene at one point that students had to navigate the crime scene. There's all kinds of ways to play games with students that make it more fun to learn, and that's going to make it stick as well.
I was thinking when I was in college, we made this bingo board for a activity, and I had somebody make it so you could put pictures in as well. So that would be something I haven't thought about that till now, but that's another one that would be fun to do. Where could I?
Well, and I was thinking of assigning the question, making the students come up with questions and answers,
Great idea.
and then use what they have. It's like, why am I inventing the questions? It's like, let's let them, you know, spend a few minutes at the beginning of the class, and then it would have to be like something, oh, that you could just read off like an index card and have them answer it without the person who wrote the question, you know, answering it. And one of the students had said around the world, which
Yeah.
I'll have to figure out how to play that game. I'm sorry. It's new to me, around the world, but there's also like, you can play beer pong with questions, have them just pull out the question out of the the cup that they taught. I don't know. It just ideas to get it more active. But then again, some of the rooms aren't big enough for certain types of games. You know, those that get up in active type games like a beer pong, the one, yeah. Because but yeah, that's the bad thing. The rooms aren't big enough to do actively type games versus just up on, you know, the screens and monitors.
I'd encourage, if you're thinking about that, see if you can reserve a room and move your classroom for the day. There's lots of big rooms that are open an awful lot of the time. See if you can book a room and move your class. Even that's an active learning. All of a sudden it's like, whoa, what are we doing here? Why'd we come to this room? What's going on? Anytime you can get the students to say, okay, what's she going to do today? That instantly breaks that idea of I'm going to play the game of education.
That's true.
So look for a room and book it, and you've got all the room you need. And if you're trying to do something inventive, we can book this create room for you. There's lots of ways to play around. Any other thoughts?
I wanted to ask if anybody does these micro tests or chapter tests as opposed to overall unit tests. No. Okay.
When I was doing my RN refresher course, this is online students again, and it was, you know, they were self-paced, but I did change the course format from having them do one big unit test at the end to several chapter tests. And I noticed they did a lot better that way. It was more bite-sized.
A book that's a really good advocate for that strategy is Make It Stick. That one's got a really good background on some different ways to keep that knowledge there, and one of them is really testing just about every class. Just little micro tests to make sure that information is staying there.
Okay.
Dixie, go ahead.
I'm thinking about it, especially for some of the more complicated first year places when we start going over nervous system and all those different things. And then I'm struggling to see the difference between quizzes and those micro tests with a test at the end. But I mean, is there a difference? Yes, it's lower stakes. You don't have this high stakes assessment that can give some of the nerves and such with it. But I don't know.
How about whiteboards? That was a big discussion for the last group. Are any of you using whiteboards?
I tried using whiteboards for a while. Whiteboard, I would go over from my PowerPoint into whiteboard, and some people would follow and do it. I found that people were just drawing the pictures in their in Notability, in their note space notes. And so I found it easier to just flip the PowerPoint over to a black screen and draw on it. And that it worked just as well, and people didn't. It was easier.
Yeah. Something that really hits home, especially I know I've got several people that are doing a lot of online stuff and asynchronous. Whiteboards are really powerful for asynchronous online resources as well. So you can actually make an asynchronous online whiteboard using the whiteboard app in Teams, and students can come in and add to their concept map at any time. So you can start the concept map and students can come in. So one of the deals I started during COVID in talking to students was doing virtual study groups. So rather than coming in and writing on the glass or writing on the whiteboards here in the building, they actually open up a whiteboard for their group and be able to whiteboard and concept map and share their notes. And that way students didn't feel like they had to come to campus and sit in the same room. A lot of our students are asynchronous and online. They're not probably coming. So it's a great resource that's out there, and it's very easy to use.
Do you have something on that? Was that any resources or any links for that on how that works?
We're putting a video together, but it's really pretty simple. There's nothing really major to do in that. So I'm going to share my screen for just a second here so you can see what I'm doing. Everybody see my screen now? Great. Awesome. So you can come down to right here, this little up arrow where you share your screen anyway. I don't know if I'll be able to do this, whether you'll be able to see that. Yeah, there we go. Can you see that area that I'm highlighting now? Share whiteboard. It's as simple as just go and hit share whiteboard. And when I hit share whiteboard, it happened here because we're using the whiteboard in a similar meeting. So we'll see what happens. Okay. And you can just hit new whiteboard. And when I hit new whiteboard, is everybody still seeing that okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and you can choose to present the whiteboard where only you can do it, but I'm actually going to choose collaborate. And we can hit collaborate on the whiteboard. And now that whiteboard is available for everyone to write on.
That's pretty clever.
You can come in and add all kinds of different diagrams. So I've added some of my own stuff in.
So I think I did this my second semester that I was teaching, and it was really effective at getting people to participate in a not a involuntary, but a nobody anonymous way. Nobody knows who it is.
Exactly. So lots of ways to kind of use and work with this to put in a number of different resources. So you could put all kinds of different pieces out here. You can do this as informally as I just did with start a whiteboard. You can set up teams and go ahead and have your teams already set up with groups and each group having a whiteboard. Students can set this up in a chat. So if they're in the middle of a chat and chatting with their cohort, they can chat back and forth and they can open their own whiteboard. There's all kinds of ways that this really can be used to do all kinds of different pieces within both a formal setting of your classroom, an informal setting of study group, and just about anything in between. So, and then I've got complete control, so I can pull the information back and be ready to go. So that's a really powerful way to leverage whiteboards in a lot of different ways. Any thoughts on that?
Can you share that? Can you share the completed whiteboard? Like if you did a whiteboard with students and they collaborated, and then once it's all done, can you like share the final product, like maybe as a PDF or something?
So let's go back here. There's a lot of ways to do that. One of them would be, let's open that back up. And I can zoom out on this, move it around, set things up, and then I'm just going to hit Shift Command 4, and that does a screenshot. And I can save that right to photos. And now I can just take that idea and put my photos right over here into, if I go to the chat, We can add a photo in. Come on. There we go. And I can drop that photo right into the chat, but that's now in my photos. So I could put that out in Brightspace. I could send that to all the students. I can really do just about anything I wanted to do with that whiteboard once it's done. The way you do that on your iPad is just a Shift Command 3 or a Shift Command 4. Either one of those will take a screenshot for you. Shift Command 3 just grabs the entire page. Shift Command 4 lets you select a part of the page, and then you can just grab the part that you want. So for my online, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I can see that would work very well for group projects.
Absolutely. And the fact that it's asynchronous, so that it's going to sit there for as long as people want it to be there. And so one student can work at 5 o'clock tonight, and the other one's better at 5 o'clock in the morning, and another one's got some time at 2 o'clock the next day. They can all come in and add to the whiteboard at that point. And then I have instructors that will ask the students if they want to do assessment on that. Okay, student A, you get blue, student B, you get green, and student C, you get red. And now I know who contributed what to the project. So I can do a quick assessment that way. There's all kinds of ways to think about how to use this. Any other thoughts on that one? Sorry about that. Get back to my image here. There we go. What other tools are people using? Any other thoughts or strategies? Anybody using unfolding case studies for assessment or escape room kinds of things?
I used to use unfolding case studies as a lecture. I
Okay.
don't anymore with the graduate students, but in the undergraduate, I use them all the time.
I used 2 of them this week with lecture.
When you do
They
them
weren't
in
really
lecture,
unfolding.
okay.
They really weren't unfolding, but they were 2 of them related to the issues that we were talking about. So, and they did actually pretty good in regards to their nursing diagnosis and intervention. So, but then again, you just have those students who know the information speak up. So I go, okay, thank you. Now let's go over to this table, third one from the back on the left-hand side, and that they look like, oh my gosh, she's calling on me.
Mm-hmm.
But gets them involved.
Yep. Have any of you used the card decks before for selecting students? That's a much easier way to select a student than calling out. So I carry a card deck in my bag all the time. And at the start of a class, when I know I want interaction, I'll hand out a card to each student. And one of the challenges of getting interaction is, especially if you have a class of 60 students, you can't call on everybody at once. But if I give 60 cards out and I say, okay, I'd like all my face card heart folks to volunteer information. Put your cards up, show me who my face card heart folks are, and we're going to be calling on you for answers right now. So that way it doesn't feel like you're necessarily picking on a student that isn't participating. It's more random. But I've always been known to deal from the bottom of the deck. So I may put 3 or 4 of my face card hearts on the bottom of the deck. And for those students that don't typically answer up during class and don't participate, they get one of my cards off the bottom of the deck. And nobody notices I'm dealing from the bottom. But I can easily then turn around and call on my face card heart folks. And I know that I'm going to get 4 or 5 of my students that don't typically get involved that are going to have to answer up. You have to be a little bit careful with that. I got caught one time. The student said, "How do you know I had a face card heart?" Well, just happened to know. So lots of fun ways that you can play that game as well. So don't hesitate to shuffle things around a little bit using a card deck.
It's also fun to get card decks from software publisher, or not software, but book publishers.
Oh yeah.
I got this one of anatomy items.
Oh wow, that's a cool idea. I like that.
So because I teach anatomy, I have all these different anatomy ones that I use, and students find it really fun.
That's awesome. I'll have to find a deck like that. That's cool.
I never used the cards. I had a colleague who would use a squishy, like Nerf type. I think it was honestly a dog toy. And right, everybody had to stand up, and then once you answered a question, you sat down, and they threw the ball to somebody else. So everybody was standing. So if you had somebody who really wanted to sit down, they wanted the ball.
Yeah,
so we do that too.
Lots of great ways to get people involved and kind of force that participation. So don't hesitate there. Online, you can do the same thing. So rather than having them stand, everybody raise your hand. In the virtual raising the hand, like, I can put my hand up here. I think I can anyway. There we go. Yeah. You put your hand up, and now your hand is up. And then when you answer the question or you participate, then you get to put your hand down. So some great ways to use that online as well. So when you said you were doing unfolding case studies, how were you doing those in class?
I adapted them into a PowerPoint.
Oh, did you?
And I didn't get any lecture, and then we would work through it in class.
Did you do the PowerPoint where it was interactive, or did you do it just as a slideshow?
No, it was more of a slideshow, but I would make them answer.
Okay. So one of the tricks that you can use, I'll share my screen here, and this is a really handy piece that a lot of people don't realize they can do in either Keynote or PowerPoint. And you can actually make an unfolding case study using PowerPoint or Keynote. And the way that you do that, everybody see my screen now? A yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So here's a sample that I built of an unfolding case study, and I've just been using this, so it looks a little messy now because I keep adding to it. But it could easily be a PowerPoint or a Keynote, either one. But most people think of PowerPoint and Keynote as sequential. You have to go from slide 1 to slide 2 to slide 3 to slide 4. In this one, I have an unfolding case study. A patient walks into the clinic one day. What did they notice? Or what do you notice? And here I have my 3 different options over here. And you can actually branch and create buttons to do just about anything you want within Keynote or PowerPoint. So I could actually ask the students, which option did we notice, and take a vote? Oh, you all noticed option 2 the most. And we can put whatever topic we want in here and whatever data and things like that. Then when you push option 2, you go out to the actual slide for option 2. And then I've got a button to go back. So maybe that wasn't what we necessarily wanted to do. So we'll go ahead and hit return and go back. And maybe instead I wanted to see option 3. We can click on option 3, and option 3 takes us actually out to a video. So we could watch a video of what we wanted to share with the students based on option 3. So lots of things that you can start to do. You can add graphics in, you can put your own buttons in. So down here, that I just added a button yesterday to walk through this with people, and we can click on the basket and we go out to option 6. So lots of things that you can start to do to build an unfolding case study in your PowerPoint or Keynote. Anybody use something along those lines, or would that be helpful?
I've used those before. I don't do them in a case study format. It's more like your Jeopardy.
Yeah,
That's
so you
how
can
I-
really build about any application you want with using that idea of just using PowerPoint to create buttons. I did that in my previous life with Apple. I always did presentations, and I could pretty much predict what people were going to ask questions about, but they didn't always. And I didn't always want to dive down to every single detail. Teaching in a class, you may have some students that you know are going to ask a certain question, or you want to spend a little more time there. I actually built extra buttons in my presentation to branch down to more details on some topics. And that way, if nobody asked the question or I didn't think I had time to cover that topic today, I skipped past that button and kept on going through my slide. But if I had some extra time, or I had somebody that was asking more detailed questions, I could click the detail button and jump to the details about that particular topic, and then bounce back to my presentation and continue right on. So lots of interesting ways to kind of play with different ways to incorporate strategies into what it is you're already doing. Any other thoughts or challenges that you run into? All right, well, it's a Friday afternoon. We'll give you a few minutes back then. Thanks very much for your time, and have a great weekend.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Talk to you soon.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thanks, Mark.